The morning sun peeked through the tall glass windows of Vantage Technologies, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors of the executive level. It was 6:30 a.m., and Rosa Mendez was already 2 hours into her shift. The building was quiet at this hour, just how she liked it. No bustling employees, no ringing phones, just Rosa, her cleaning cart, and the peaceful stillness of dawn. Rosa was 52 years old, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled and hands that told stories of hard work. She had been cleaning at Vantage for 7 years now, ever since she'd moved to the city. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to support herself and help her daughter Lucia through college. Every time Rosa felt tired, she would think of Lucia's graduation day, now just months away. The thought always brought a smile to her face. Almost done with this floor, Rosa whispered to herself as she pushed her cart toward the conference room. She liked to talk to herself while working. It made the empty building feel less lonely. The executive floor was Rosa's least favorite, not because it was difficult to clean. In fact, it was often the cleanest since the big bosses liked everything spotless for their meetings. No, Rosa disliked it because of how small it made her feel. The massive oak desks, the expensive artwork, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Everything screamed wealth and power, two things Rosa had never known. Still, she took pride in her work. Rosa believed that no matter what job you did, you should do it well. So she dusted every shelf, wiped every surface, and made sure the brass fixtures shined like new. The executives might not notice her, but they would notice her work. As Rosa was finishing up the conference room, she heard the elevator ding. She checked her watch, 7:15 a.m., that was odd. Executives rarely showed up before 8:30. The elevator doors opened, and out stepped a young man Rosa had never seen before. He was tall and slim, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Rosa made in 3 months. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he carried an expensive leather briefcase in one hand and a large cup of coffee in the other. He walked with the confidence of someone who had never been told no in his life. Rosa quickly gathered her supplies, hoping to finish and leave before having to interact with him. She had learned long ago that it was best to be invisible in places like this. But the young man was walking quickly, typing something on his phone, not paying attention to where he was going. As he rounded the corner into the conference room, he collided with Rosa as she was backing out with her cart. Time seemed to slow down. The coffee cup flew from his hand, its contents spraying across his pristine white shirt and expensive gray suit. The young man let out a startled yelp, jumping back as the hot liquid soaked through his clothes. "I'm so sorry, sir," Rosa gasped, immediately reaching for the cleaning cloths on her cart. "Let me help you." "What the hell?" the young man shouted, looking down at his ruined clothes, his face contorted with anger. "Look what you've done." "It was an accident," Rosa said, her voice small. "I didn't see you coming." "Of course you didn't see me," he snapped. "Isn't it your job to pay attention? Or is that too much to ask from the cleaning lady?" Rosa flinched at his words. She had dealt with rude people before, but something about this young man's anger felt different, more entitled, more personal. "I apologize, sir," she said again, trying to keep her voice steady. "If you give me your jacket, I can try to clean it before the stain sets. This is a $5,000 suit," he shouted loud enough that his voice echoed down the empty hallway. "Do you even know what that means? That's probably more than you make in a month." Rosa's cheeks burned with humiliation. She was aware that other early arrivals were starting to peek out of their offices, drawn by the commotion. "What's your name?" the young man demanded, pulling out his phone. "Rosa. Rosa Mendez," she answered quietly. "Well, Rosa Mendez," he said, typing into his phone. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows about your incompetence." "Do you know who I am?" Rosa shook her head, though she was beginning to suspect. "I'm Tyler Harrington," he said, his voice dripping with self-importance. "My father is Richard Harrington, the CEO of this company. I just joined as Vice President of Product Development, and I was supposed to lead my first executive meeting today." He gestured at his stained clothes. "How am I supposed to make a good impression looking like this?" Rosa's stomach dropped. Of all the people she could have spilled coffee on, it had to be the CEO's son on his first day. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Harrington," she said. "It was an accident. An accident that could cost you your job," Tyler interrupted. "We don't need careless people working here." By now, a small crowd had gathered. Rosa could see a mix of expressions, some uncomfortable, some curious, a few even looking sympathetic. But no one stepped forward to defend her. Is there a problem here? A new voice entered the conversation. It belonged to Grace Chen, the head of human resources, who had just stepped off the elevator. Tyler turned to her, pointing at Rosa. This cleaning lady wasn't watching where she was going and spilled coffee all over me. I have an important meeting in less than an hour and now I look like this. Grace glanced between Tyler and Rosa, then at the small crowd of onlookers. Her expression was professional but tight. I see, Mr. Harrington, why don't you come with me? We keep some spare clothes in HR for emergencies. We might find something that fits you. She turned to Rosa. Ms. Mendez, please clean up this mess and then come see me in my office. Rosa nodded, relief washing over her that Grace had used her name and spoken to her with respect. As Tyler followed Grace to the elevator, he turned back to Rosa. This isn't over, he said quietly, but loud enough for nearby people to hear. People like you need to learn their place. As they walked away, Rosa could hear Tyler continuing to complain. Does my father know we hire such incompetent people? She shouldn't be allowed on the executive floor if she can't even watch where she's going. His voice faded as the elevator doors closed. The small crowd slowly dispersed, people returning to their offices, some giving Rosa pitying looks, others pretending they hadn't seen anything. Rosa's hands trembled as she cleaned up the spilled coffee. In 7 years, nothing like this had ever happened to her. She had always been careful, always done her job well, and now in a single moment her livelihood was threatened. As she wiped the last of the coffee from the marble floor, Rosa noticed a young woman approaching. It was Diane from the IT department. They had spoken a few times when Rosa cleaned the tech offices late at night. Are you okay? Diane asked, her voice gentle. Rosa tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. I'll be fine. It was just an accident. That guy was way out of line, Diane said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Everyone knows it, but no one wants to say anything because he's the boss's son. It doesn't matter, Rosa said, though her voice betrayed her. He's right. I should have been more careful. That's nonsense, Diane insisted. Accidents happen. He wasn't looking where he was going either. Rosa appreciated the support, but she knew how these things worked. People like Tyler Harrington didn't face consequences. People like her did. By noon, the story had spread throughout the company. Rosa could feel eyes on her as she continued her cleaning rounds on the lower floors. Some people were kind, telling her not to worry. Others avoided her entirely, as if her bad luck might be contagious. When her shift ended at 2 p.m., Rosa made her way to the HR department. Her heart pounded as she knocked on Grace's door. Come in, Grace called. Rosa entered, her eyes downcast. You wanted to see me, Ms. Chen? Grace gestured to the chair across from her desk. Please sit down. Rosa perched on the edge of the seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I've reviewed the security footage from this morning, Grace began, her tone professional, but not unkind. It's clear that the incident was an accident, with both parties at fault. Rosa looked up, surprised. She hadn't expected fairness. That said, Grace continued, Mr. Harrington has expressed his concerns about having you work on the executive floor. Am I being fired? Rosa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Grace shook her head. No, but we will be adjusting your cleaning route. You'll be assigned to the lower floors from now on. Relief washed over Rosa, followed quickly by a fresh wave of humiliation. She was being punished even if Grace was trying to frame it differently. I understand, Rosa said quietly. This isn't a reflection on your work, Rosa, Grace added. Your supervisor has nothing but praise for you. This is just to avoid future incidents. As Rosa left the HR office, she felt a mixture of emotions. Relief that she still had her job, anger at the unfairness of it all, shame at being demoted even if they weren't calling it that. But beneath it all was something unexpected, a spark of determination. For years, Rosa had accepted her place in the world, had made herself small and invisible. But Tyler Harrington's words echoed in her mind. People like you need to learn their place. Who was he to decide her place? As Rosa rode the bus home that evening, staring out the window at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk, something shifted inside her. She thought of her daughter Lucia, studying engineering and dreaming of a better future. She thought of her own past, the dreams she had set aside when life got hard. Perhaps it was time to stop being invisible. What Rosa didn't know, what no one at Vantage Technologies knew, was that she had skills that went far beyond cleaning. Skills that had once earned her respect in another life, another country. Skills that had been dormant for too long. Tyler Harrington had humiliated her, thinking she was nothing more than the cleaning lady. He had no idea what she was capable of, and soon, the entire company would be astonished to find out. Rosa's small apartment was quiet when she arrived home that evening. The humiliation of the day still clung to her like a shadow. She dropped her keys in the bowl by the door and sank into her worn but comfortable couch, closing her eyes for a moment. The apartment wasn't much, a modest two-bedroom in a working-class neighborhood, but Rosa had made it home. Photos of Lucia lined the walls, telling the story of her daughter's journey from gap-toothed child to confident young woman. Plants thrived on every windowsill, bringing life and color to the space. It was simple, but it was theirs. Rosa's phone buzzed with a text message. It was Lucia. "Hi, Mom. Hope you had a good day. Just finished a tough coding assignment. Call later?" A small smile crossed Rosa's face. If only her daughter knew what kind of day she'd had. She typed back, "Looking forward to it. So proud of you." Rosa set her phone down and walked to her bedroom. She pushed aside her cleaning uniforms and reached to the back of her closet, pulling out a dusty box she hadn't opened in years. Inside was a life she had left behind. Degrees and certificates, photos of her standing proudly in front of computer terminals, newspaper clippings about technology innovations. Few people knew that Rosa Mendez had once been Rosalinda Mendez Gonzalez, a respected software engineer in her home country. She had worked for one of the largest tech companies there, helping develop systems that were still in use today. That was before the economic collapse, before her husband's death, before she had to make the difficult choice to leave everything behind and move to a country where her credentials weren't recognized and her accent was too thick for most employers to look past. Rosa had taken the cleaning job at Vantage Technologies out of necessity, telling herself it was temporary, but temporary had stretched into years as she focused on giving Lucia opportunities she never had. She had kept her skills sharp through free online courses, learning new programming languages late at night after her shifts ended. It was her secret hobby, her connection to who she used to be. Now, looking at the evidence of her past life, something stirred inside her. Tyler Harrington's sneering face appeared in her mind. "People like you need to learn their place." "My place," Rosa whispered to herself, running her fingers over her old credentials. "Perhaps it's time to remember my place." She closed the box and moved to her small desk in the corner of the bedroom. Her laptop was old but functional, upgraded over the years with parts she'd found on sale. Rosa opened it, and after a moment's hesitation, navigated to the Vantage Technologies website. As a cleaning staff member, Rosa had been everywhere in that building. She had overheard countless conversations, seen whiteboard plans, glimpsed computer screens. Companies rarely saw cleaning staff as security risks. They were practically invisible. But Rosa had been paying attention for months. She had heard executives and developers talking about Vantage's newest project, a cloud-based security system called Secure Vantage that was supposed to revolutionize how businesses protected their data. It was Tyler Harrington's big project, the one he was supposed to be leading. It was also in trouble. Rosa had overheard enough to know the project was behind schedule and over budget. There were issues with the core architecture that no one seemed able to solve. Just last week, she had been cleaning around a group of tired developers who were openly discussing the flaws in the system. "What this company needs," Rosa said to her empty room, "is someone who can see the problem with fresh eyes." She opened a new document and began to type, her fingers remembering their old skill. First, she outlined what she knew about Secure Vantage from overheard conversations. Then she researched similar systems, identifying common issues and solutions. By midnight, she had filled pages with notes and ideas. Rosa's phone rang, startling her. It was Lucia's scheduled call. "Mom, sorry it's so late. This assignment took forever," Lucia said when Rosa answered. "It's okay, mihija. I was still up. Everything okay? You sound distracted." Rosa hesitated. She rarely shared her troubles with Lucia, always wanting to be the strong one. But tonight felt different. "I had a difficult day at work," she admitted. "There was an accident with the CEO's son. He was very unkind." "What?" "Tell me everything," Lucia demanded. Rosa found herself telling the whole story: the coffee spill, Tyler's public humiliation, her reassignment to lower floors. It felt good to finally share it with someone who would understand. "That's awful, Mom. Can you report him or something?" Lucia sounded outraged. Rosa gave a small laugh. "Report the CEO's son? No, that's not how things work." "So you're just going to accept it? That's not like you." "No," Rosa said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "I'm not accepting anything. I'm going to do something about it, but in my own way." "What do you mean?" Rosa glanced at her computer screen filled with notes. "Let's just say I'm working on a project, something that will remind me and them of who I really am." After talking with Lucia for another half hour, Rosa returned to her computer with renewed purpose. If she was going to do this, she would do it right. Over the next 2 weeks, Rosa settled into a new routine. During the day, she cleaned the lower floors of Vantage Technologies, keeping her head down and avoiding Tyler Harrington. At night, she worked on her project. Using public information about Secure Vantage and what she had overheard, Rosa began developing a solution to the system's core problems. She identified a fundamental flaw in the way the security protocols were structured, something the development team had overlooked because they were too close to the project. On her breaks, Rosa would sit in the company cafeteria, listening to frustrated developers discuss the latest setbacks. One day, she overheard 2 young programmers talking at a nearby table. "We're never going to meet the deadline," one of them said, keeping his voice low. "The architecture is fundamentally flawed. Tyler keeps pushing for faster progress, but he doesn't understand the technical challenges," the other replied. Yesterday, he yelled at Diane from the back-end team until she cried. Rosa's grip tightened on her sandwich. So Tyler's treatment of her wasn't an isolated incident. He was making everyone miserable. That night, she worked until dawn, finally completing a proof of concept that demonstrated how to fix the security system's flaws. It wasn't a complete solution, but it pointed the way forward with elegant, efficient code that addressed the core issues. Rosa sat back, rubbing her tired eyes. Now came the hard part: what to do with her work. She couldn't just walk into the development department and hand it over. No one would take a cleaning lady seriously, even one with her background, and after the incident with Tyler, she wasn't eager to draw attention to herself. After careful consideration, Rosa decided on an anonymous approach. She created a new email account and drafted a message to the head of development, a woman named Priya Patel who had always been kind to the cleaning staff. "I've been following the development of Secure Vantage and believe I've identified a solution to your core architecture issues. Attached is a proof of concept that demonstrates a more efficient approach to the security protocols. I hope this helps your team." Rosa attached her work. Read the email 3 times to check for errors, and then heart-pounding hit send. The next day at work, Rosa noticed a different energy on the development floor as she emptied trash bins. People were huddled around computers talking excitedly. She slowed her pace, trying to overhear. "The code is brilliant," someone was saying. "Whoever sent this really knows what they're doing." Priya took it straight to Richard Harrington, another voice added. "They're implementing the changes immediately." Rosa hid a smile as she continued her rounds. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of professional pride. Her solution was being recognized even if no one knew she was behind it. Over the next week, the excitement about the anonymous contribution grew. Rosa heard that the development team had made rapid progress implementing her suggestions, and the project was back on track. Tyler Harrington was taking credit for the turnaround, claiming he had guided the team to the breakthrough. That bothered Rosa, but not as much as she expected. She knew the truth, and that was enough, until it wasn't. 10 days after sending her email, Rosa arrived at work to find a company-wide memo in her inbox. Richard Harrington himself had sent it. "To all Vantage Technologies employees, the recent breakthrough in our Secure Vantage project has put us ahead of schedule for our launch. However, we have been unable to identify the source of the anonymous contribution that made this possible. I am personally offering a significant bonus and recognition to whoever stepped forward with this solution. Please contact my office directly if you have information. Your expertise is valued at Vantage." Rosa read the email twice, her heart racing. This was unexpected. Richard Harrington wanted to meet the person behind the solution, a person he would never suspect was cleaning his company's floors. That evening, Rosa sat at her desk staring at the email. She had achieved what she wanted. She had proven to herself that she still had valuable skills. Did she need public recognition too? The answer came when she thought of Lucia, working so hard for a future in technology. What example was Rosa setting by hiding her abilities? By accepting less than she was worth? No more hiding, Rosa whispered, opening a new email. She would respond to Richard Harrington's message, reveal herself as the anonymous contributor, and face whatever came next. As she typed, Rosa thought about Tyler Harrington and his contempt for people like her. Soon, he would learn exactly what kind of person she was, and the entire company would be watching. Rosa stared at her computer screen, rereading the email she had just sent to Richard Harrington. Her finger had hovered over the send button for nearly 10 minutes before she finally gathered the courage to press it. Now it was done. There was no going back. Mr. Harrington, she had written, I am the person who sent the solution for the Secure Vantage project. I would like to meet with you to discuss my contribution. Sincerely, Rosa Mendez. She had purposely kept it simple, not mentioning that she was a member of the cleaning staff. That revelation would come face to face. Rosa closed her laptop and tried to calm her racing heart. Tomorrow would change everything one way or another. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Rosa tossed and turned, imagining all the possible ways her meeting might go. Would Richard Harrington laugh her out of his office? Would he be angry that someone like her had accessed company information? Or would he actually listen? Morning arrived with no answers, only nervous energy that followed Rosa as she put on her cleaning uniform. She had requested a brief meeting during her lunch break, and Richard's assistant had quickly confirmed it. The CEO apparently was very eager to meet the mystery contributor. As Rosa cleaned the lower floors of Vantage Technologies that morning, she felt strangely calm. Whatever happened today, she would face it with dignity. She was done being invisible. At precisely noon, Rosa put away her cleaning supplies and headed to the restroom. From her bag, she took out a simple but professional blouse to replace her uniform top. She had considered wearing a full business outfit but decided against it. She wanted Richard Harrington to understand exactly who she was. A cleaning lady with exceptional skills. The executive floor felt different today. 2 weeks ago, she had been banished from it in humiliation. Now she was returning on her own terms. The same receptionist who had witnessed her embarrassment looked up in surprise as Rosa approached. I have a meeting with Mr. Harrington, Rosa said, her voice steadier than she expected. The receptionist checked the schedule, eyes widening slightly. Yes, Ms. Mendez, he's expecting you. Go right in. Rosa took a deep breath and walked through the heavy oak doors into Richard Harrington's office. It was exactly as grand as she imagined. Spacious with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, decorated with expensive art and sleek furniture. Richard Harrington himself sat behind an imposing desk, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that evaluated everything they saw. Ms. Mendez, please come in, he said, standing to greet her. If he was surprised to see someone in a partial cleaning uniform, he didn't show it. I've been very eager to meet you. Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Harrington, Rosa replied, taking the offered seat across from him. So you're the person behind our breakthrough, he said, studying her with interest. I must admit you're not in our system as part of the development team. No, sir. I'm not. Rosa met his gaze directly. I'm part of the cleaning staff. There it was, the flash of surprise she had been expecting. Richard Harrington was too practiced a businessman to let his shock show for more than a second. But Rosa caught it. The cleaning staff, he repeated, leaning back in his chair. I see. And how did you come to develop a solution for our most complex project? Rosa had prepared for this question. I have a background in software engineering. Mr. Harrington, before I came to this country, I worked for Technica Global for 8 years as a senior systems architect. She reached into her bag and placed her credentials on his desk. Old ID cards, certificates, even news clippings from her previous life. When I moved here, my degrees weren't recognized and my accent worked against me. Taking a cleaning job was supposed to be temporary, but life doesn't always go as planned. She paused. However, I've kept my skills current through online courses and independent study. Richard picked up one of her old employee badges, examining it thoughtfully. And how did you learn about the Secure Vantage issues? This was the tricky part. As cleaning staff, we hear things, sir. Developers talk openly when they think no one is listening. Whiteboards aren't erased. Screens are left open. I wasn't trying to spy. I was just present while doing my job. Rosa expected anger or accusations of impropriety. Instead, Richard Harrington laughed. Of course, he said, shaking his head. The invisible workforce. We forget you're there, which is our mistake, clearly. He gestured to the papers on his desk. The team tells me your solution was brilliant. They've already implemented most of it, and the project is back on track. I'm glad I could help, Rosa said simply. Help? Ms. Mendez, you've potentially saved us millions in development costs and prevented a delayed launch. He studied her for a moment. Why did you send it anonymously at first? And why come forward now? Rosa took a deep breath. I sent it anonymously because I didn't think anyone would take a cleaning lady seriously. I'm coming forward now because... She hesitated, then decided on honesty. Because I'm tired of being invisible. I have skills that could benefit this company beyond cleaning its floors. Richard nodded slowly, seeming to appreciate her candor. Well, Ms. Mendez, I'd like to... The office door swung open, interrupting whatever he was about to say. Tyler Harrington strode in, his attention on the folder in his hands. Dad, we need to talk about the Secure Vantage timeline. I think we can push the launch date up now that... He stopped abruptly when he noticed Rosa sitting there. Recognition dawned on his face, followed by confusion. What is she doing here? He asked his father, not even addressing Rosa directly. Richard's expression cooled slightly at the interruption. Tyler, this is Ms. Mendez. She's the one who provided the solution to the Secure Vantage architecture problems. Tyler stared at Rosa, then at his father, then back at Rosa. That's not possible, he said with a dismissive laugh. She's a cleaning lady, the one who spilled coffee all over me. Yes, that was unfortunate, Richard said, his tone measured. But Ms. Mendez has just been showing me her credentials. She was a senior systems architect before coming to this country. Tyler's face flushed. This is ridiculous. She probably stole the information from somewhere. There's no way she came up with that solution. Actually, Rosa said, speaking directly to Tyler for the first time since their confrontation, I'd be happy to walk through my solution step by step and explain my reasoning. Perhaps in front of the development team. The challenge in her voice was subtle but unmistakable. Tyler's flush deepened. That won't be necessary, Richard interjected smoothly. The team has already verified the elegance of the solution. He turned to Rosa. Ms. Mendez, what would you say to joining Vantage Technologies in a more suitable capacity? We have an opening on the development team that I think would benefit from your expertise. Rosa hadn't dared hope for such an outcome. I would be honored, Mr. Harrington. Excellent. My assistant will work out the details with you. He stood, extending his hand. Welcome to the team, Ms. Mendez. Tyler looked like he might explode. Dad, you can't be serious. We don't even know if she... Tyler, Richard cut him off sharply. Ms. Mendez has proven her capabilities. That's all that matters to this company. His tone softened slightly. Why don't you sit in while she explains her solution to the team? You might learn something valuable. The dismissal was clear. Tyler stood there for a moment longer, looking between his father and Rosa, then stormed out of the office without another word. Once he was gone, Richard sighed. I apologize for my son's behavior, both now and during your previous encounter. He has much to learn about leadership and respect. Thank you, sir, Rosa said, still processing the rapid turn of events. No, thank you. Ms. Mendez, you've shown remarkable character and skill. He smiled. Now shall we surprise the development team with their new colleague? The next hour passed in a blur. Richard personally walked Rosa to the development floor, where Priya Patel and her team were gathered in the main conference room. The expressions on their faces when Richard introduced Rosa as the anonymous contributor were priceless. Surprise, disbelief, and then as Rosa began to explain her solution in detail, growing respect. The key insight, Rosa explained, pointing to the diagram she had drawn on the whiteboard, was to restructure the authentication protocols to work in parallel rather than sequentially. This reduces latency while actually improving security. The team listened intently, occasionally asking questions that Rosa answered with confidence. Even the most skeptical developers were won over by her clear expertise and deep understanding of the problem. Tyler Harrington stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, watching silently as the cleaning lady he had humiliated commanded the respect of the entire development team. When the presentation ended, There was spontaneous applause. Priya stepped forward and shook Rosa's hand warmly. "We would be honored to have you on the team," she said. "Your solution was brilliant." As the meeting broke up, Rosa found herself surrounded by developers welcoming her and asking questions about her background. For the first time in years, she was being seen for her mind, not her uniform. Grace Chen from HR appeared at her side. "I've been asked to fast-track your transfer," she said with a smile. "Seems you've been in the wrong department all along." Rosa laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Life takes unexpected turns," she said. As she left the conference room, Rosa spotted Tyler standing alone in the hallway. Their eyes met briefly. His held anger and embarrassment, but also something else, perhaps the beginning of understanding. Rosa didn't need his approval or his apology. She had proven her worth not just to Vantage Technologies, but to herself. As she walked through the hallways that she had once cleaned, Rosa thought about the email she would send to Lucia tonight. "Guess what, Mejia? Your mother is a software engineer again." The cleaning lady had stepped out of the shadows and into the light, and the company would never be the same. The morning sun streamed through windows that Rosa had once cleaned but now gazed through as an employee of the development team. It had been 3 weeks since her life-changing meeting with Richard Harrington, and each day still felt slightly unreal. Rosa adjusted her new desk chair and took a sip from her coffee mug, a gift from Priya's team with Code Wizard printed on the side. Her computer screen displayed complex diagrams for Secure Vantage's next phase, and sticky notes covered her monitor with reminders and ideas. A photo of Lucia sat beside her keyboard, her daughter's proud smile a constant motivation. "Morning, Rosa," Priya called as she passed by. "Ready for the team meeting at 10? "All prepared," Rosa replied with a smile. She had stayed up late finalizing her presentation on additional security features, but the fatigue didn't bother her. This was the kind of tired that came with purpose and meaning. The transition hadn't been entirely smooth. Some employees still did double takes when they saw her in the development area, instead of pushing a cleaning cart. A few of Tyler's allies made whispered comments when she walked by. But for the most part, Rosa had been welcomed with respect and curiosity. Her first paycheck as a senior software engineer had brought tears to her eyes. It was more than 3 times what she'd earned as a cleaner. She had immediately called Lucia. "Mom, that's amazing," Lucia had exclaimed. "Now you can quit your night classes." "No," Rosa had replied firmly. "I'll finish my degree. Education is never wasted." As Rosa reviewed her presentation one last time, she noticed Tyler Harrington walking through the development floor, his expression sour. Since her promotion, he had avoided her completely, speaking to her only when absolutely necessary in group meetings. Tyler had been struggling. The success of Secure Vantage was now attributed largely to the discovery of hidden talent within the company, a story Richard Harrington proudly shared with board members and clients. Though no one directly blamed Tyler for the project's earlier issues, the implication was clear. He had failed to solve problems that a cleaning lady had fixed. Rosa didn't take pleasure in his discomfort. Despite what he had done to her, she understood what it was like to have your confidence shaken, to question your place in the world. The development team gathered in the main conference room at 10 o'clock. Rosa sat near Priya, spreading out her notes as others filtered in. Tyler arrived last, sitting at the far end of the table, his attention fixed on his phone. "Good morning, everyone," Priya began. "We've got a packed agenda today, starting with Rosa's presentation on enhanced security protocols." Rosa stood and walked to the front of the room. Just 3 months ago, she had been wiping down this very table in the early morning hours. Now she was presenting to the team that sat around it. The thought gave her a moment's vertigo. "Thank you, Priya," she said, pushing through her nervousness. "As we prepare for the beta release of Secure Vantage, I've identified several areas where we can strengthen our security measures without compromising performance. For the next 20 minutes, Rosa walked through her proposals, pointing out potential vulnerabilities and suggesting elegant solutions. She had practiced her presentation with Lucia over video chat, working to keep her explanations clear and accessible, despite the technical complexity. The team listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that Rosa answered with growing confidence. Only Tyler remained silent, his expression unreadable as he took notes. When she finished, Priya led a round of applause. These are excellent suggestions. Rosa, I think we should implement all of them before the beta release. Implementing all of these will push our timeline back by at least 2 weeks. Tyler finally spoke up, his voice cool. We promised the board a beta release by the end of the month. Quality and security should come before arbitrary deadlines, Priya countered. Rosa's identified legitimate vulnerabilities. I'm not questioning the vulnerabilities, Tyler said, surprising everyone. The issues are real. I'm just pointing out the timeline impact. Rosa saw an opportunity. What if we prioritize? She suggested. I can work with Tyler to identify which security measures are most critical for the beta release, and which could be implemented in the next phase. The room went quiet. This was the first time Rosa had directly suggested working with Tyler. All eyes shifted between them, waiting for his response. Tyler looked at Rosa for a long moment, then nodded slightly. That makes sense. We can review the proposals this afternoon. A small victory, Rosa thought. Not friendship or even an apology, but professional respect. A start. After the meeting, Rosa returned to her desk, surprised when Tyler approached a few minutes later. 2:00 in my office? He asked stiffly. I'll be there, Rosa replied. The afternoon meeting was awkward but productive. They sat on opposite sides of Tyler's desk, methodically going through Rosa's security proposals and ranking them by importance and implementation difficulty. This encryption update is essential, Tyler acknowledged, pointing to one of Rosa's diagrams. But it will take at least a week to implement properly. What if we pulled in Diane to help? Rosa suggested. She has experience with this type of encryption from the Parker project. Tyler considered this. That could work. He made a note, then hesitated. Your background in security architecture is impressive. Where did you learn this specific approach? It was the first personal question he had asked her. Progress, Rosa thought. I developed something similar at Technica Global, she explained. We were working on banking security systems with similar requirements. Tyler nodded, then looked down at his notes. I've been reviewing your original solution to our architecture problems. It was elegant. I wouldn't have thought of approaching it that way. Coming from Tyler, this was enormous. Thank you, Rosa said simply, choosing not to point out that his original reaction had been to accuse her of stealing the solution. They worked together for another hour, finding a compromise that would implement the most critical security features before the beta release, while scheduling the rest for later updates. As Rosa gathered her notes to leave, Tyler cleared his throat. The company picnic is this weekend, he said, not quite meeting her eyes. Will you be there? Yes, Rosa replied. I'm bringing my daughter, Lucia. She's studying computer science and is excited to see where I work. Something flickered across Tyler's face. Surprise, perhaps, at this glimpse of Rosa's life outside work. Good, he said awkwardly. I'm sure she'll be impressed. It wasn't much, but it was the most human interaction they'd had since her promotion. The company picnic was held at a large park near the city center. Colorful tents dotted the green space with games, food stations, and seating areas for Vantage Technologies employees and their families. Rosa and Lucia arrived shortly after noon. Lucia had come home from college for the weekend specifically to attend the picnic with her mother. Mom, this is amazing, Lucia said, looking around at the elaborate setup. Is that a rock climbing wall? Richard Harrington doesn't do anything halfway, Rosa laughed. Come on, I want you to meet my team. They made their way through the crowd, Rosa introducing Lucia to her colleagues. Priya immediately engaged Lucia in conversation about her studies, while other team members shared stories about working with Rosa. Your mother saved our biggest project, one developer told Lucia. She's already teaching us new approaches we hadn't considered. Lucia beamed with pride. She's been solving tough problems her whole life, she said. Now everyone else gets to see what I've always known. Rosa squeezed her daughter's hand, heart full. This was what she had worked for all these years, not just financial security, but a future where Lucia could see all possibilities open before her. As they stood in line for food, Rosa noticed Richard Harrington approaching with Tyler beside him. Ms. Mendez, Richard greeted her warmly. I'm glad you could join us today. Thank you for having us, Rosa replied. This is my daughter, Lucia. Richard shook Lucia's hand. A pleasure to meet you. Your mother has made quite an impact at Vantage. I'm not surprised, Lucia said confidently. She's always been amazing. Richard laughed appreciatively. Well said. I'm trying to convince her to start a mentorship program for our junior developers. Her approach to problem solving is refreshing. Tyler stood slightly behind his father, uncomfortable but making an effort to be present. Rosa caught his eye and nodded slightly in acknowledgement. After Richard moved on to greet other employees, Tyler lingered. Your security implementations are working well, he said to Rosa. The team completed the critical updates yesterday. That's great news, Rosa replied. It was a good plan. An awkward silence fell. Lucia looked between them, clearly sensing the tension. You must be Tyler, she said directly. My mom's told me about you. Tyler flushed slightly. Yes, well. He trailed off, clearly unsure what to say. People make mistakes, Lucia continued, her voice matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. What matters is what they do afterward. Rosa hid a smile. Her daughter had always been forthright. Tyler seemed taken aback by Lucia's directness, but then his shoulders relaxed slightly. You're right, he said. And I haven't done enough afterward. He turned to Rosa. I owe you an apology. My behavior was inexcusable, both when we first met and after you joined the development team. Rosa hadn't expected this moment to come so soon, or so publicly. Thank you for saying that, she said simply. The mentorship program my father mentioned, Tyler continued. It was actually my suggestion. I thought, perhaps we could work on it together. The company could benefit from your perspective. It was an olive branch professionally framed but personally significant. Rosa considered it for a moment. I'd be interested in discussing it, she said finally. Monday morning? Tyler nodded, relief evident on his face. Monday morning, he nodded to Lucia. It was nice meeting you. Enjoy the picnic. As he walked away, Lucia turned to her mother with raised eyebrows. So that's the guy who was so awful to you? He seems pretty humbled now. People can change when their worldview is challenged, Rosa said, watching Tyler rejoin a group of executives. Sometimes all it takes is seeing someone differently. As the afternoon continued, Rosa found herself observing the company with new eyes. The cleaning staff worked quietly around the edges of the picnic, setting up, clearing away, maintaining the spaces that others enjoyed. How many of them, she wondered, had hidden talents and dreams just waiting for the right opportunity? The mentorship program that Tyler had suggested suddenly took on new meaning in her mind. Perhaps it could be more than just technical training. Perhaps it could be a way to find other hidden talents within the company, to create paths for people to be seen for their true potential. Rosa made a mental note to bring this up in her meeting with Tyler on Monday. The story of the cleaning lady and the millionaire's son might be just the beginning of a much bigger change at Vantage Technologies. 6 months had passed since Rosa Mendez stepped out of the shadows and into her rightful place at Vantage Technologies. The company's headquarters buzzed with excitement on this crisp autumn evening. Employees from every department gathered in the main lobby, which had been transformed with elegant decorations for a special celebration. Rosa stood near the refreshment table, wearing a deep blue dress that Lucia had helped her choose for the occasion. She still felt slightly out of place at company events, but tonight was different. Tonight was partly her night. There she is, said a warm voice behind her. Rosa turned to see Richard Harrington approaching with several board members. The woman who started a revolution at Vantage. Rosa smiled, no longer uncomfortable with such praise. I think revolution might be an exaggeration, Mr. Harrington. Not at all, he insisted, turning to his companions. Thanks to Ms. Mendez, not only did Secure Vantage launch successfully, but we've discovered 3 other employees with hidden talents who are now in more appropriate roles. And tonight we celebrate the official launch of our Pathways program. The Pathways program had grown from that first conversation between Rosa and Tyler after the company picnic. What had started as a simple mentorship idea had evolved into something much more ambitious, a company-wide initiative to identify and develop talent at all levels of the organization. The board has unanimously approved making Pathways permanent, one of the directors told Rosa. The preliminary results have been impressive. Thank you, Rosa replied. But it's been a team effort. She glanced across the room where Tyler was speaking with a group of employees, his manner more relaxed and attentive than the arrogant young man who had stormed into the building that fateful morning. Working with Tyler over the past months had been challenging at first. But gradually, something unexpected had happened. As they developed the framework for pathways, Rosa had seen genuine change in him. His initial reluctance had given way to real engagement, especially after meeting the first group of program participants, employees from maintenance, reception, food service, and other overlooked departments who had valuable skills and perspectives to offer. The crowd's attention shifted as Priya approached the small stage set up at the front of the lobby. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a milestone celebration for Vantage Technologies. Tonight, we celebrate two major achievements: the successful market launch of Secure Vantage, which has already been adopted by 30 major clients, and the official establishment of our Pathways program. Applause filled the lobby. Rosa spotted Lucia near the front, having flown in specifically for this event. Beside her stood Carlos, the former mailroom clerk who was now a junior graphic designer, and Wei, who had moved from cafeteria staff to accounting based on her finance degree from her home country. They were among the first Pathways participants, and their success stories had helped convince the board that the program deserved permanent funding. I'd like to invite Rosa Mendez and Tyler Harrington to the stage, Priya continued. As the co-creators of the Pathways program, they have something special to share with us tonight. Rosa made her way through the crowd, meeting Tyler at the steps to the stage. They had come so far from that coffee-splattered morning. Ready? Tyler asked quietly. Rosa nodded. Ready. They took their places at the podium facing the assembled employees of Vantage Technologies. 6 months ago, Tyler began, Vantage was a different company. We thought we knew where talent came from and what it looked like. He paused. I thought I knew. I was wrong. A hush fell over the room. It wasn't often that the CEO's son admitted a mistake so publicly. Rosa Mendez taught all of us an important lesson, Tyler continued. Talent, skill, and innovation can come from anywhere in an organization, if only we have the wisdom to look for it and the humility to recognize it. Rosa stepped forward. The Pathways program began with a simple idea. What if we created deliberate bridges between different parts of the company? What if we looked beyond job titles and departments to see the whole person and their potential? She gestured to the group of Pathways participants standing together. In our first cohort, we discovered software developers, designers, accountants, and project managers who had been working in support roles. People whose talents had been invisible because no one thought to look. Tonight, Tyler picked up, we're announcing the expansion of Pathways. Starting next month, the program will include paid education benefits, flexible scheduling for participants, and a formal mentorship structure. Every employee at Vantage will have the opportunity to be seen, to grow, and to contribute their best talents. The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause. Rosa could see genuine excitement on the faces of many employees, particularly those in support roles who had never before been included in company initiatives. But there's one more announcement, Rosa said when the applause quieted. A personal one. She took a deep breath. Today, I accepted the position of Director of Talent Development at Vantage Technologies. In this new role, I'll oversee the Pathways program and work to ensure that no employee's potential goes unrecognized. The room erupted again, with Lucia cheering loudest of all. Rosa's eyes misted slightly as she saw her daughter's proud face. From cleaning floors to director in 6 months, a journey neither of them could have imagined. As the formal presentations concluded and the celebration continued, Rosa found a quiet moment near one of the large windows overlooking the city lights. She was joined to her surprise by Nancy, the head of the cleaning staff who had been her supervisor for 7 years. Quite a change, Nancy said, nodding toward the crowd. From cleaning these floors to running programs. It still doesn't feel quite real, Rosa admitted. Nancy smiled. I always knew you were smart, Rosa. Too smart for cleaning, though you never complained. She hesitated. I've been thinking about applying to Pathways myself. You should, Rosa encouraged. What would you want to do? I've always been good with numbers. I managed my family's store back home for years before coming here. I think I could do well in operations or logistics. The next cohort starts in January, Rosa said. I'd be happy to help with your application. Their conversation was interrupted by Tyler, who approached with a look of contained excitement. Rosa, there are some people I'd like you to meet, he said, then nodded respectfully to Nancy. Sorry to interrupt. It's fine, Nancy replied with a small smile. We'll talk more later, Rosa. As Nancy walked away, Tyler leaned closer to Rosa. The CEO of TechWorks is here, he said quietly. He's heard about Pathways and wants to discuss implementing something similar at his company. And he's not the only one. There are representatives from 3 other major firms asking questions. Rosa raised her eyebrows. They want to copy the program? With our guidance, Tyler confirmed. Dad thinks there's potential for a consulting opportunity here. Companies are starting to recognize the cost of overlooking talent within their own walls. The idea that Pathways might extend beyond Vantage hadn't occurred to Rosa. That would mean more people like me getting their chance, she said, thoughtfully. Exactly. Tyler's expression grew more serious. I've been meaning to tell you something. Remember when you first joined the development team, how difficult I was? Rosa gave him a wry look. It would be hard to forget. I was afraid, he admitted. Not just of looking bad because I hadn't solved the problems you did. I was afraid that if someone like you, someone I had dismissed so completely, could be so brilliant, then maybe I didn't deserve my place here at all. The honesty surprised Rosa. And now? Now I understand that my place isn't given to me, it's earned. Every day, he smiled slightly, you taught me that. Not with words, but by example. Before Rosa could respond, they were joined by Richard Harrington and several business people in expensive suits, the visiting executives Tyler had mentioned. Ah, here they are, Richard said proudly. The innovative minds behind Pathways. Let me introduce you to Rosa Mendez, our new Director of Talent Development, and my son Tyler, who's shown remarkable leadership with this initiative. As introductions were made and conversation flowed, Rosa found herself standing in the same lobby where, not so long ago, she had pushed a cleaning cart in the early morning hours, invisible to most who worked there. Now these powerful business leaders were asking for her insights, noting down her answers, treating her as an authority. Later, as the event wound down, Rosa found Lucia waiting for her near the coat check. So, Lucia said with a grin, Director Mendez, how does it feel? Rosa looked around at the Vantage headquarters, a building she knew every inch of, from the basement supply closets to the executive boardroom. It feels right, she said simply, like I've found my place. And Tyler? Lucia asked curiously. You two seemed almost friendly up there. People can change, Rosa said. Sometimes they just need the right push. They walked together toward the exit, passing a cleaning crew that was waiting discreetly to begin work once the celebration ended. Rosa stopped and greeted each of them by name, introducing them to Lucia and to several executives who were leaving at the same time. Remember, she told one young man who had recently joined the cleaning staff, the Pathways applications open next month. Think about what I said. He nodded eagerly. I will, Ms. Mendez, thank you. As Rosa and Lucia stepped out into the cool night air, Lucia linked her arm through her mother's. You know what's amazing? She said. 6 months ago, that coffee spill seemed like the worst thing that could have happened. And now it seems like the best. Rosa finished. Life is strange that way. They walked toward the parking lot, their steps synchronized. Behind them, the Vantage Technologies building stood tall against the night sky, its windows glowing with possibility. Inside those walls, the millionaire's son, who had once humiliated the cleaning lady, now worked alongside her as a colleague and ally. And throughout the company, other employees who had long been overlooked were beginning to step forward, their hidden talents finally finding the light. The story of Rosa Mendez had already spread far beyond Vantage, a modern parable about seeing the potential in everyone, regardless of their title or position. It had started with a spilled cup of coffee and a moment of humiliation. It had ended with transformation, not just for Rosa or for Tyler, but for an entire corporate culture. As Rosa drove home with her daughter, she thought about all the other Rosa Mendezes out there, the brilliant minds pushing brooms, serving food, answering phones, waiting for their chance. Because of what had happened at Vantage, some of them would get that chance sooner rather than later. And that, she decided, was the most satisfying ending she could have imagined.